Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? My name is Jeff Hildebrand,
Bonjour tout le monde, comment
and I'm
allez-vous?
here to be able
Je
to
suis
welcome you
ici
to the
pour
LifeWave
être
Connect
capable de
product.
vous accueillir
So
et vous
excited for
présenter
the
les nouveaux
opportunity to
produits. Je
have
suis si
David on
content
the
d'avoir
call today
l'opportunité d'avoir
and to be
David
able
avec
to
nous
talk a
aujourd'hui,
little bit about
qui
this
va nous parler
amazing
un peu
product,
de ce
which
produit
is Aeon.
incroyable.
And it sounds like we've got a little bit of background. Okay, it looks like the background noise is gone. So if I could, David, if you were on the call, I'd like to welcome you on. We're so grateful to have you here today. First of all, how are you doing? David, it sounds like you're on mute.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, can hear you just perfect now. So we're so grateful to have you on the call. How are things going?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
We can hear you just fine now.
Thanks. Personally, I'm doing fine, and my family is fine, but my heart goes out to all of our members and all of those people in Florida that have been, in some cases, devastated by the hurricane that just went through. And I have to say that our membership, our leadership in Florida has been absolutely incredible at, they've jumped right in to lend a hand. Lori Berger had an emergency shipment of patches that was sent out. I've had a number of calls with the Red Cross, who's been fantastic in their response. And we're going to make it official. But earlier this week, we donated $100,000 US to help with these relief efforts. And for those members that were at convention in August, the Red Cross had said, boy, we could really use that drone now. And, we really see the need for it. So, I just wish everyone that's been affected by this a speedy recovery. And, there's definitely help that's on the way.
Wow, well, that's so phenomenal. One of the things that I've been so impressed with since joining LifeWave about 6 months ago is the heart. The heart of the internal team here, the heart of our members. It's just been really humbling and an honor to be a part of that. Well, David, we get the opportunity today to talk to you a little bit about Aeon, and it is absolutely one of my favorite patches. And, if just as we're getting into this, I would love to actually share with you my personal experience with Aeon, because it has meant so much to me. I've spent most of my career in product marketing and product management. I've come across a lot of phenomenal products in my time. And one of the things that really drove me to LifeWave is that this technology does not exist anywhere else in the world. There's nowhere else that you can find it. And the moment that I spoke with you that day about 6.5 months ago, I turned to my wife and I said, there is not a way I can't be a part of this because it is so special. Well, I got my my shipment of patches, and I started wearing X39 and Aeon from day one. And I faced some health challenges coming in. It wasn't just my professional career that led me to LifeWave. It was also my health journey that led me here. And after 6 months of wearing the patches, I can tell you I am feeling incredible, absolutely incredible, a noticeable difference in my health, in my wellness, in my energy, in my pain, all of it. And my wife, she just tells me every day she's so grateful that we found LifeWave. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for all you've done and for these amazing products. Now, one of the questions that we all want to know is, can you give us a little behind the scenes peek on Aeon? How did it come to be? What was the story behind it?
Well, every one of the patches has its own unique story, and that has definitely been a fun part of this amazing journey. I'm thankful to God every day that this company has been so blessed to touch the lives of people around the world. And with Aeon in particular, it was an incredibly interesting story. I had been in 4 books that Suzanne Summers wrote, and all 4 books went to New York Times bestsellers. And what Suzanne would do, incredible human being, extraordinarily gracious person, she would invite people to her home, the scientists and doctors that were in her book, and we would celebrate the release of this book and get to know one another. Up to that point, none of us had met one another unless it had been through, prior experiences with Suzanne or professionally. And by the way, getting invited to Suzanne Summers' house is quite an ordeal. This was a $30 million home out in the desert of Palm Springs, and just an incredible thing. And I was very, very fortunate to experience that. Well, as I met some of the doctors that were there, we began to talk about anti-aging and, what work was being done. And one of the doctors shared with me an experiment that he had done with bees. And what he had found, well, first of all, what's known is that the queen bee lives 50 to 60 times longer than the worker bee. And of course, our primary area of focus these days is age reversal. And so this was one of the early insights that I was getting into some of these mechanisms. And what he had found was that there was a very specific peptide that the queen bee was eating in the royal jelly. So the regular workers are going to eat the honey, and the queen bee eats the royal jelly, which is loaded with other nutrients. That's why it's called royal jelly, because it's reserved for the queen. And this peptide is what allows the queen bee to live so long. So he was able to synthesize this peptide, and he found out actually it occurs naturally in human beings. It's made in the liver, but it declines, the production declines with age. So he did an experiment. He took this peptide, he injected it into the worker bee, and one injection gave the worker bee an increase in lifespan of 5 to 6 times above normal. So could you imagine having a lifespan of 500 years old, right? And you just got one injection of a natural peptide. That would be pretty awesome. So he tried this in human beings, and what he found was that the peptide broke down very quickly. So in order for it to work in humans, you'd have to consume 300 grams per day. It has to be given by IV because it breaks down in the stomach like other peptides, and you have to take it in over a very long period of time, about 20 hours a day. So he said, unfortunately, it's just not practical. So I began to dig into the chemistry of this peptide because it does exist naturally. And what I found was that we could elevate it with the patch technology, and that's what Aeon became. So what we found when we tested the Aeon patch is that it does some extraordinary things which explain how it extends lifespan, or how this peptide extends lifespan. What we found was that the peptide would immediately reduce stress on the nervous system. In reducing stress, it reduces the inflammatory response, meaning that people that have chronic or acute inflammation above normal, this is going to help to bring inflammation back into a normal range. And one of the immediate benefits as a consequence is that it provides pain relief. So people can get all of these immediate benefits just from the first day of using Aeon. And then, we hope to see these incredible longevity effects over time.
Well, what an amazing story. I mean, that's That's really incredible. It's fun to hear how these things come about. So you hit on a couple of the benefits of Aeon. You talked a little bit about, stress reduction. You talked a little bit about the inflammation and that. But I would love to dive a little bit more on this call into inflammation. So can you share with us a couple of thoughts? First of all, what is the role of inflammation in the body? Is it good? Is it bad? Is there a mix? How does it work?
Well, I think what you would say is that biochemicals that occur naturally in the body are neutral. In other words, they're not good or bad. They're part of the life process. So we might think of things like amino acids as being good because they're precursors to hormones, peptides. They build up muscle tissue, collagen, protein. So we might think of that as good. And we might think of inflammation or oxidative stress as being bad, but that's really not the case. There's a very important role that inflammation plays in the body, and that's to tear down damaged tissue. So let's connect all of the dots here together for a moment. Let's say that someone gets an injury. Let's say someone bumps their knee, they get a cut, and the first thing that happens is the body will increase production of oxidative chemicals. Now, oxidative chemicals will kill things like viruses and bacteria. So when we get an increase in oxidative chemicals at an injury site, it's going to suppress naturally a bacterial infection. So it's a very, very good thing. Then what happens is the oxidative stress triggers a release in inflammation. And in this case, let's say it's an inflammatory cytokine. And the inflammatory cytokine is there to do a variety of things, but one is to break down damaged tissue so we can bring in new healthy tissue. And it's been discovered, as a matter of fact, in the San Diego area, not very far from our office, that the inflammatory cytokine acts as a signaling molecule for stem cells. So not only does it break down the damaged tissue, but the stem cells are attracted to the inflammatory cytokine, and the stem cells go to that site and then start to do their job and repair the tissue.
Wow. So you mentioned it, but there is a connection between stem cells. There's a connection between stem cells and inflammation. And so that leads to the next question, which is, in terms of the patches that we currently have, is there a certain synergy that can be found in Aeon and perhaps the X39? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there are some double-edged swords here with inflammation. Most people think of inflammation as being bad for a good reason, is because we associate it with chronic disease. So for example, rheumatoid arthritis is a disease that we would associate with a chronic state of inflammation. And generally speaking, what happens is that as people age, their natural production of antioxidants decreases. And so when there's an inflammatory response, and this is even now referred to as inflammaging, it's a term for low-grade inflammation that's associated with aging. This inflammation hangs around and can damage healthy tissue. So that's where inflammation gets kind of a bad rap. So now let's say that someone has an injury and they're a little bit older, and they're in this chronic state of inflammation. Now the stem cells are attracted to the injury, but they can't do their job because the inflammation kills off the stem cells. So the human body is always about balance, right? Our bodies were created to be in a state of balance. So that means we need a balance between antioxidants and the oxidative chemicals. We need a balance between inflammatory response and antioxidants and stem cell function in this case. So this is what makes X39 and Aeon such a fantastic combination, because we can mobilize the stem cells with X39. And if people do have chronic inflammation, they can manage it with Aeon. And now those two patches work phenomenally well together.
So, well, that's amazing, because X39 is by far the patch that we see. The majority of the people coming in are trying that patch, but that was my experience as well, David, was the combination of the two was just so effective with the things that I were feeling. So going back to Aeon, just in general as a patch, can you share a little bit about, do you have any studies around the safety of the patch or the efficacy of the patch? Of course, as we deal with anything like pain and inflammation, I think that's a question that a lot of individuals will have.
Yeah. Over the years, since 2002, when I started the company, we've accumulated over 80 clinical studies, and that number continues to grow. I'm going to share screen here. And I think first thing that I'm going to do is, before we get to our studies, I want to pull up some background material so that if people are interested in doing some more of their own research and looking into this, they have a place where they can start. So first thing, here's a study that was published in Aging and Disease, and it's talking about this relationship between chronic inflammation and aging. So this is really important to understand, that elevated levels of inflammation is associated with not only the aging process, but age-related diseases. Again, we mentioned rheumatoid arthritis, even depression is characterized by elevated states of inflammation. So important thing here is that if we're looking to manage the inflammatory process, there are anti-aging benefits that are associated with this. And a matter of fact, when we look at the phenomena of age reversal, or we look at species that don't age, it's always associated with a state of normalcy and balance. So one example is that there is a type of mollusk that lives to be over 500 years old. And when they broke the mollusk open, they found out that it was youthful and young, and there was no detection of inflammatory chemicals above what we would consider normal. So there's an intimate relationship between aging and inflammation. So we want to extend lifespan and health span. We've got to get inflammation under control. Okay, so that's one reference. Then here's another reference on the role that inflammation plays relative to stem cells. It's a little bit of a love-hate relationship. Stem cells are targeted to an injury site by inflammation, but if someone is older and they have elevated levels of inflammation, the stem cell colony dies off. So in order for stem cells to function normally in our body, it requires an inflammatory response. But again, we want to manage that inflammation so we can heal an injury. So if someone is dealing with an old injury that won't heal, maybe it's a torn rotator cuff, torn meniscus, any type of injury like this, then more than likely a good place to start is getting the inflammatory process under control. So use products like Aeon, incorporate olive oil into the diet. It's very rich in monounsaturated fats, and the olive oil is wonderful at helping to manage inflammation. Herbs like curcumin are wonderful at controlling inflammation naturally. And then we want to go to this one other article over here. Some people may be wondering the connection between stress and inflammation, and this was a nice article that I found that I wanted to share with our community about this. And it's important to understand that inflammation can be elevated in our body through not only physical means, but psychological means as well. Meaning that when people are under emotional stress, maybe they're having a fight with their significant other, they're having stress from their kids, their job, they're not sleeping well. All of these things are going to elevate inflammation in the body. And so this is an article that we'll get into discussing this, but you can see even things like heart disease, cardiovascular disease occurs from an elevated state of inflammation. So that's important to keep in mind. We want to manage that stress. So going back to your question about clinical studies from LifeWave, first thing is I would definitely encourage our members to go to the science section of the website where they can find references to patents, references to research studies that we've done, and other resources having to do with energy medicine, phototherapy, acupuncture, things that would be related to our world as we see it. So this is an excellent resource. So we'll go across here, not in any particular order, but we want to look at the effects of the Aeon patch and exactly, what happens with this and what can we do. In this study, what we wanted to do was use a piece of bioelectrical equipment called electrointerstitial scanning. This is a medical device from Europe, and it takes readings of all the organs in the body. And what was important about this is that from the use of the Aeon patch, and here, this was actually in our pre-launch where we were doing studies, so people only knew it as the X15, the researchers. So X39 is X39, but the Aeon patch was the 15th patch I invented, so it's X15. But you can see here in the study that we had people using the patch. We had two different groups, and they were using it, let's say this cohort B, for example, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. And what you can see is that we hit statistical significance, that wearing the patch 5 days a week for 2 weeks significantly improved the functional status of all the organs in the body. So meaning we reduce stress on the nervous system. This manages inflammation, and as an effect of this, the organs can function as they're intended to, and in fact, they even improve in health. And so people that want to go in and read this in a little bit more detail, they can. But it's important. This was a study that we finished over to statistical significance. Now, Tom Budzinski, very well known as a researcher in the field of neurology and biofeedback, very well published. And he did also an early study on the Aeon patch. Again, it's referred to here as X15. And in this study, Dr. Budzinski and his wife, Dr. Helen Budzinski, were using an electrocardiogram to measure the effects on the autonomic nervous system. So we have in the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So sympathetic nervous system is what people consider to be in a fight mode, and parasympathetic is a relaxed state. And the idea here is that you want to be in a state of balance. You don't want to be too far over to one side or the other. And in this clinical study, it shows up really nicely in this graph, is that we hit statistical significance with 20 people. And you can see that there was immediate response to the use of the Aeon patch in balancing the autonomic nervous system. So he had said that they had hypothesized that based on the way the Aeon patch works, that it would balance the autonomic nervous system. And this study showed that that did in fact occur. Now, Glenn Ryan is a researcher that we've worked with for many, many years. He is a phenomenal guy. He is considered a world authority in his field. And he's not only a biochemist, but he's also a biophysicist. And in this particular study, we did something extremely interesting. We wanted to see if our patches could have any effect on human DNA. And so the patches were separated from a sample of DNA that was in a test tube, and there was no contact between them. So of course, the patches are activated by light, and light will travel over a distance, and this is the interaction. But we can go down here, and he gets into a wonderful discussion on exactly how this mechanism works. But I'm going to skip down past all the data analysis, and it shows that at the time we tested 3 patches: Aeon, Energy Enhancer, and SP6. We just kind of chose those arbitrarily. And in fact, the Aeon patch did induce a very strong electrical response in human DNA. And this in the human body shows up as a change in gene expression, which allows the Aeon patch to reduce inflammation. More specifically, what we saw through our blood testing is that the Aeon patch is going to elevate the intracellular antioxidants, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione. And this is how they're controlled. This is how the Aeon patch is controlling or managing the inflammatory response. So this is a really interesting study that we did. And then one other one that I wanted to bring up, which was a published study, double-blind, placebo-controlled. This was done by Dr. Homer Nazaran, a biomedical engineer at the University of Texas in El Paso. And what we could see with this study, it was done on heart rate variability. So heart rate variability looks at the muscle contractions in the heart. And there's going to be a ratio between high frequency and low frequency muscle contractions. And basically, we want to put the heart into a state of relaxation. And so in this study, what happened, we had people use the Aeon patch for 20 minutes, and we showed to statistical significance that after 20 minutes, it would in fact reduce their stress as measured on HRV. So I know I talked for quite a while there, so I'm going to stop now and let you get some words in. But that, that's an overview of the work that we've done with the Aeon patch over the years. And so basically, what we found is that it has immediate benefits at reducing stress, and it has some long-term benefits as a consequence.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. As you were talking there, David, we had questions are just flowing in.
Yep.
Questions flowing. But the point is, everyone is absolutely here to hear the information you're sharing. It's we just absolutely love to be edified and to hear the studies and the stories. But a couple of the questions that came in. Now, I know we can't really talk about there's a fine line when we talk about disease, right? And there's some things that we can't cure, prevent, or treat diseases, but there's some people asking specifically around, could this be helpful for something like Alzheimer? Is there a connection there?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is we get asked questions all the time, pretty much on a daily basis, is how to use the patches to treat different types of medical conditions. So First thing is, I am not a medical doctor. I am an inventor by trade. And as a consequence, I don't give medical advice, and neither does our company. We don't claim to treat or cure any type of disease. And if someone has a serious medical condition, they should speak with their doctor first before using our products or using any products we might recommend. Also, we don't perform clinical studies on the use of our products in treating disease. Our products are general wellness devices, so they are used for things like improving energy, managing pain, improving sleep, and supporting the body's natural repair mechanisms through stem cell activation. So we want to talk about that first. So obviously, when people have some serious health conditions, they want to know, what can be done about them. So in Alzheimer's disease, and this is also to say, if we were going to look at other conditions like ALS, Parkinson's, fibromyalgia, they are going to be characterized by elevated states of inflammation, but it's actually a little bit more going on than that. In the case of Alzheimer's disease, it's characterized, at least one school of thought, this has been for quite a while, that it comes from insufficient sleep. And as a result, there is a protein, it's called a beta amyloid 2 protein. It gets elevated, and accumulation of beta amyloid 2 leads to Alzheimer's disease. I've done some looking in the literature, and my hypothesis, and I'm going to speak using that word in the true scientific term, hypothesis that altering alanine metabolism in the brain could be an effective therapy for Alzheimer's disease. Reason I say that is because alanine, the amino acid, is used to make both carnosine and AHK. AHK is elevated by our X49 patch. And what we know about carnosine, for example, is that it's an antioxidant, it's stored in the brain, and when people use it, not only does it protect the brain from damage, but it also improves cognitive function. So I think that there could be some clinical uses of the antioxidant carnosine in perhaps reducing the risk of Alzheimer's, or maybe even therapeutically. So I'm speaking in terms of either oral supplementation of carnosine or an IV of carnosine. I'm not making a reference to the use of our product this way, since we don't know. So if I was a person that had Alzheimer's, which I'm thankfully not, I would go speak to I'd take this information, I would go speak to my doctor, and I'd say, hey, I'd like to try a carnosine supplement, or in this case, beta alanine supplement, which helps support carnosine levels. And, is that okay for me to take? The other thing a person would be looking to do is increase their production of melatonin. Now, our Silent Nights patch would do that, but again, therapeutically, you could say, I'll use a medical doctor as a reference to back me up. Dr. Frank Schallenberger, who's a world authority on the use of ozone in treating cancer, uses melatonin to treat a number of different health conditions, cancer being one, and Alzheimer's being another. So now this is very, very high doses of melatonin, 60 milligrams. So this would be much more than what you might produce naturally. So again, there's some natural products like melatonin and beta alanine that can be very useful in diseases, not only like Alzheimer's, but also in cancer.
So another one of the questions coming in actually ties quite well into that discussion, which is, it's kind of twofold. Number one, what's the best time for someone to wear Aeon? And then number two, in terms of if it's at night and if people are wearing it at night, is there a synergy that goes along with the Silent Nights patch?
Yeah, Aeon is interesting in that it can be used either during the day or at night. Some patches, such as glutathione, I'd only recommend to be used during the day. Glutathione is going to be producing a very heavy detox effect. And if you use a patch like that at night, people could wake up with a headache. But Aeon, I think what we found through a practical experience is that while the initial clinical studies and testing were done with people using it during the day, using it during at night helps people go into a state of relaxation. The nervous system calms down and can produce a very deep quality sleep. So I would recommend first that if someone is using Aeon, they try it both during the day and the evening, and they see what works best for them. Now, if someone had an injury that they wanted to support the healing process, I'd probably recommend using X39 and Aeon during the day together. If someone wanted to just maintain their health, I'd say they could use Aeon either during the day or in the evening. Now, with Silent Nights, that's a very interesting question. We have not done a study yet on using Aeon and Silent Nights together. Again, I would say this is something that people should try, but my experience would be that one or the other is fine, that you don't need to have both, but everyone's circumstances are going to be a little bit different.
Perfect. And then just to kind of reiterate and make sure, because there were several questions around this, around the best time to wear this. So is what you're saying is it kind of depends on what you're wearing it with and what you're looking to accomplish. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think what's fair to say is that the instructions that we provide for the products are going to work on 80% of the population. We use what's called Perletto's principle, which is the 80-20 rule. So you could say that the instructions are good for about 80% of the population. And then the other 20%, they're going to customize to their own lifestyle. If people are dealing with chronic pain, they may handle things a little bit differently than someone that's, an Olympic athlete or professional athlete looking to optimize for sports performance. But the general protocols that we provide in our instructions are going to do just great for most people.
Yeah. So David, obviously we're in the business of helping people. We're in the business of, providing more life, more living, longer longevity. So as somebody is out, and sharing these products, is there a particular group of individuals, or is there a particular group that you would say, well, these are the people I would introduce Aeon to. This is where it's going to be most effective.
Well, I would say everyone needs Aeon, just really like everyone needs X39, in the sense that we are all under tremendous amounts of stress today. We're under stress from the food that we eat. Even when we're eating clean, there are chemicals in our environment today that we're being exposed to, and this is setting off oxidative and inflammatory stress in the body. And this is another thing, Jeff, that I'm really proud about with our company, is that it's very important culturally that we talk about a whole health approach. We want people to visit their practitioners. We want people to have a healthy diet, supplement where necessary, get your daily exercise in, get proper sleep, hydrate, do all these things and build up your foundation so you can have the best experience possible with our products and also have a long and healthy life. It's not just about putting on the Aeon patch and everything else is going to be fine. The Aeon patch is a wonderful tool, but you really want to build up, your foundation. So, that all said, just about everybody is a candidate for the Aeon patch, but let's say people over the age of 30. We really start to age at about age 25, I hate to say. The fibroblasts start to slow down in collagen production, the cell starts to become compromised, hormone production goes down, and the aging process is underway. So the earlier that we can manage the inflammatory response, the better health we're going to be in. And so I would say, generally speaking, people over the age of 25 or 30 are good candidates for Aeon.
I know it's like that one day I woke up after 25 and I started getting out of bed and thinking, wait, I didn't even work out yesterday and I feel sore, things start to happen with your body and definitely. Well, this is such an amazing product. You mentioned something just a minute ago that I just wanted to maybe expound on a little bit. You talked about a holistic approach to health. And one of the questions that I had is, as someone's starting LifeWave and maybe they're on X39 and Aeon, what are some other lifestyle changes that you would suggest making in combination with that to really get the most effect out of these products?
Well, this is the reason why it's great to come to conventions. Because when we're at the live meetings, we get into these things in a lot of detail. And just at the August convention, I spent about 45 minutes going through what a day in the life would look like. What do you do from, hour by hour when you wake up? So I don't have quite the time to go through that. But basically, when someone wakes up in the morning, they want to be consuming water, get their body hydrated. I would take a look at what time of day you want to exercise and then commit to a program. We're doing a very interesting study, by the way, that we just contracted with. It's going to be a 60-person double-blind study on X39 and X49. And we're only going to allow people to exercise no more than 10 minutes a day. We have a very specific routine that we're giving people, and we're going to look to see how much muscle growth, strength, stamina, bone density they can build up with very, very limited amounts of exercise. But it's important that you get out there and do it, right? So this is something people want to schedule into their lives. Then planning out and making some decisions about nutrition. Are you going to go with a ketogenic diet? Are you going to go with intermittent fasting? Are you going to go low carb? Give some thought into how to structure your day with eating so you're getting all of your essential micro and macronutrients. And if you have a specific target of either building muscle or reducing body fat, you're planning to succeed on that. I'd also be looking at nutritional needs and working with a clinical nutritionist or a qualified healthcare practitioner. Go for blood tests. You can go for something called an organic acid test. You can do a blood and urine test and find out, what foods are you allergic to. You can find out what nutrients you might be deficient in. Is there elevated levels of inflammation in your body, a specific marker that might be some cause for concern? And what type of natural materials can you take to deal with that? Even when things are a little bit scary, like let's say heart disease, right? Someone has age-related or age-associated stiffness of the arteries. One of the things that softens up the arteries is vitamin D. So taking 5,000 IUs daily of vitamin D is a way to make the arteries a little bit more supple. If people have plaque accumulated in their arteries, they can use a supplement from Standard Process called Cyruta, which will help to reduce arterial plaque. So anyway, this is all to say that there are plenty of things out there that that people can use, but you got to incorporate it into your daily routine. I think it's also good that people don't eat past a certain hour, so they don't that doesn't interfere with their sleep. No caffeine, preferably late at night, and then plan out. We've talked about this on other webinars. You plan out your sleep. So you're in a dark room, you keep your feet warm to support circulation, put your patches on, use the aromatherapy sprays, and get a good night's sleep, and then you're ready to go the next day. So that's very, very quickly going through it. But as I said on other webinars and also at conventions, we spent a lot of detail on this subject.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Living a healthy lifestyle is always a good choice. And certainly in my experience, I found that when I'm using any sort of supplement or any sort of product in combination with a healthy lifestyle, it seems to certainly enhance that effect. So speaking of other supplements and other things, is there anything, are there any other products that you would recommend from a supplementation standpoint that would work well with Aeon, especially in terms of, this discussion around like inflammation, around stress, those types of things?
Yeah. So let's say that someone is dealing with a lot of stress in their life, maybe something that's beyond their control. And you have, so let's say that you have someone, maybe they're having a tough time at work, and they're there 8 or 10 hours a day. Maybe they're not making as much money as they need to support their family. They're getting those kind of pressures. Certainly because of the pandemic, that has introduced a lot of different types of pressure into people's lives. So how do you manage that? First, stay well hydrated and drink lots of clean water. That's going to be very, very important in helping to support the natural alkalinity of the body. I would also be looking at potassium intake. So either supplementing with potassium, like 500 to 1,000 milligrams a day of potassium citrate. There's some enjoyable supplements that are on the market that really taste good. Or, making sure you're getting things like bananas, avocados, different types of seeds that are rich in potassium. But potassium is a good way to help balance out the alkalinity, which is going to help protect the body from inflammation. We've already talked about the Aeon patch, so we don't have to go back over that. We mentioned olive oil before, and there's a number of other benefits with olive oil that are worth mentioning. It's been shown that people that live to be over 100 include olive oil in their diet. I had met with a medical doctor in Rome, and we were talking about the Mediterranean diet. And he had said that in his research, he was finding that all the benefits of the Mediterranean diet were associated with nothing more than olive oil. And what's interesting is that new studies that are coming out show that the reason why olive oil does what it does is because it activates the sirtuin genes. It does it even better than resveratrol. So if people are currently taking a resveratrol supplement, they might be able to ditch it in favor of common, extra virgin organic olive oil. Just make sure that it's authentic. It's worth it to pay a little bit extra money to get an organic extra virgin olive oil. And you can taste the difference between the real stuff and the fake. And then, of course, part of this is that not only does extra virgin olive oil manage inflammation, but it looks like it does a great job of reducing our risk of disease and extending lifespan. Another one is curcumin. And I remember years ago when we looked into this, there is a type of curcumin. It's an extract called BCM 95. And that's the one that's been used in clinical studies, but there certainly could be others. And curcumin is the extract from turmeric, which is, of course, a root. And curcumin is an extraordinarily broad spectrum anti-inflammatory. So people that are dealing with stress, they're dealing with inflammatory stress, curcumin is a way to help keep that under control. You can take it orally, or with men that have prostate cancer, or men that have an enlarged prostate as associated with aging. The combination of curcumin and DMSO is used in an IV to reduce the swelling of the prostate and actually reverse prostate cancer. So I know a medical doctor who said there wasn't any one case of prostate cancer that he ever saw with his patients that was not curable with DMSO and curcumin, and he gave it to his patients by IV. So anyway, this is all to say that staying hydrated, potassium, olive oil, curcumin are going to be a great way to help deal with stress. Exercise, of course, I'm going to strongly recommend exercise, especially resistance training, and get some daily exercise. It's a great way for stress management. I would also recommend intermittent fasting. So, and this is also useful for people that are managing their weight. And here's a simple way to think about muscle gain and fat loss. All right. So probably everybody that is on with us tonight, we have a lot of people here. At one time or another, you've wondered, gee, can I reduce my body fat? Can I increase my lean muscle? And it really comes down to this. When we're eating, we are turning off fat burning, and we're turning on insulin and fat storage. And when we're not eating, we're elevating our growth hormone and our testosterone, and the growth hormone is going to help to liberate fat and help to metabolize that for energy. So this is why tools like intermittent fasting are so valuable. One example, that I've practiced for many years is that you only eat within an 8-hour window. And during that 16 hours, you could have, coffee, tea, water, different types of water products flavored or with stevia or sweetened with stevia, but you don't have any calories. And what's happening is your growth hormone, testosterone levels are going up, you're burning fat. And this is going to not only help to manage your weight, but it also helps to naturally help the body deal with stress. So if we look historically, when human beings didn't have the conveniences that we had today, we had to go out and hunt for food. That's a lot of stress when you're hungry and you're looking for something to eat. So during a fasted state, our body is ideally suited to deal with tremendous amounts of stress. I probably told you more than you wanted to know, Jeff. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, this is fantastic. And one of the things that I really love about these LifeWave Connect product seminars that we do here is the opportunity not just to talk about the product, but also to talk about things that would influence and associate, general lifestyle changes. And I think that these are all things that, our listeners and us together they're just so important to health today. And, when you look at one of the things that really impresses me, David, is that when you look at everything going on, you mentioned it, we're just coming out of a pandemic. There's a tremendous amount of turmoil going on in the world. There has never been, a greater need for what we have to offer than now. And that sets everyone up, whether you're a product user or whether you're sharing the product with other members, in your communities and your families. There has never been a better time or more of a need for this type of a product than right now. So it's fantastic to be able to hear that, to hear the tips and tricks. And I know we're running out of time here. I just have one final question.
Well, you didn't even ask me what's the best stress reliever in the world.
Well, what's the best stress reliever in the world?
It's actually prayer and a relationship with God. And when you believe in the divine, and I pity atheists actually in a very loving way, because they don't believe in the Almighty. But when you have a belief in God, when you know that there is a God and you have a relationship with the divine through daily prayer. When you face problems, you can always turn to God and ask for guidance and find that there's always a purpose in all of these things. And, reading historically, there's stories where St. Peter, I was raised as Catholic, so I'll refer to him as St. Peter. But St. Peter would be put into prison and he would find joy through prayer. And of course, Peter was extraordinary because he would have angels visit him and open up the cell door and he would escape. But Peter and Paul found tremendous joy and happiness through prayer because they obviously had a very special relationship with God. So I would say in facing any challenge in life, turn to God, pray, and you'll find real magic happening in your life.
Well, I'm so grateful you said that, David. One of the most impactful things in my personal life, I had a mentor who talked to me about a morning routine. He said, if you want to change your life, get a good morning routine. And one of the things that I chose to do was wake up early, spend some time reading, spend some time meditating and praying, and spend some time exercising prior to work. And it changed my life. Just those couple of things together, early in the morning really set my day up for success. So appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your guidance on that. Just absolutely phenomenal. All right. Well, we're down to the last couple of minutes. I will just ask one last question. We'll close out the call.
Okay.
I've heard you say before that you'll always have X39 and Aeon on you. Is there a special? I'm sure that each of the patches hold a special place in your heart, but is there a particular reason why Aeon is so special to you?
Well, to me, next to X39, it's right up there. If I had to pick 2-3 patches that are the most powerful, X39 and Aeon are right at the top for me. So in my daily routine, which has changed over the years, as we learn things, I adapt and, try out. I'm constantly trying new things. I have some new technology that people have seen me wearing, wondering what that is. Because I'm an Iron Man fan, I like to say it's a miniaturized arc reactor, but it isn't. It is a new technology that we're experimenting with for age reversal. But in my routine, my daily routine now, it's X39 on the back of the neck, X49 below the belly button. I'll wear 1 or 2 sets of the energy patches, and I use the Aeon patch in the evening. That is pretty much constant. And then I work in at different times glutathione and carnosine, and then I'll experiment with Olivita and Silent Nights, but I consistently come back to Aeon in the evening.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, we're just so grateful for you, David. Thank you so much for taking your time today. We are out of time at this point, so we'll go ahead and close out the call. But thank you again for spending some time with us. Thank you for everyone who has joined us. We really appreciate your time and spending a few minutes with us today to learn about this phenomenal product. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thank you.